government has served notice it will sell off some unprofitable state-owned agencies if they fail to turn the tide. Now, the decision follows a 2020 state ownership report released by the Finance Ministry, which recorded a 5.3 billion cedi loss by SOEs. The ministry, however, says the figure represents a nearly 30% improvement on the 2019 aggregate net loss. Let's hear from the Minister in charge of state agencies, Joseph Kujo, who granted this interview to my colleague Blessed Soga.
From within, because all of them have assets. When it comes to inefficiency, I'll repeat, you address inefficiencies through training and use of technology. I'll give you an example of...
So you don't believe it's a problem of corruption? You don't believe that?
Listen, how do you solve problem of corruption? That is, go after them. You know, rule of law. So go after them means that I should spend my energy. One maybe corrupt practice or a customer who has defaulted. I should be spending energy going after customers at court. 173 plus state enterprises. Can that be done? We're rolling out measures. We are doing some policies. Equity study, for example, is to look at what we call recommendations. There are state entities that the equity study would recommend for cabinet approval to say, for this entity, invite a strategic investor into it. Because the nature of its business and the nature of capital requirements, state cannot. So invite a strategic investor. There are some that you say, take it to the stock market for listing. Because private Ghanaians will be interested holding shares of those companies. And by so doing, inject capital anytime that company needs capital. So some will be private, some will be sold off. Defunct, there are defunct enterprise sitting on assets, and government is using taxpayers' money, paying some security people, and people are demolishing the asset and selling. Something like that you don't hold. You be selling it? Oh, ask you, common sense. When you have a company, you cannot... The company has been run down. It just defunct. It's not functioning. Collapse. Assets sitting there. Okay? You have to pay security every month to take care of it. You don't have money to pay because they've run it down. You don't have money to pay for it to operate. What will you do? The private man will sell before it reaches even that stage. Do you understand? But sentiment, because of sentiment, will hold on to it and keep using your tax, income tax, when you check your pay slip, your tax, and then they go and pay for that defunct thing in the bush. And you see it run down, down, and down because of sentiment. Sentiment doesn't come in if you exact performance from people taking care of your investments, and I mean people taking care of your investment, sentiment doesn't come in. Of course, those that should deliver welfare services, you separate them to, let's say, land commission. If you purchase land before and you know the kind of things they can do to deliver an environment that is conducive for investment. People coming to Ghana to, they say to invest, you definitely need a space. You want to acquire land, and it's taking forever to acquire land. And acquiring land to corruption, frustration, and so on. Something like that. You are not exacting profits from them, but you are exacting operational efficiency from them. They too, they have the yardstick they should go with. That digitalize your operations. Let somebody go on an app. There is a mobile money that can be used to pay for the service. I can make a search on my phone. You are creating a conducive environment. The expectation of them will be different from a Gov't that produces alcohol. Is alcohol a welfare? I think that a Ghana government should produce alcohol for its citizens. So that one, it's an investment. So you go with a mindset that is investment driven, and you make sure that the chief executive is encouraged to turn up products that can be exported, that can be marketed. Are you getting me? So the yardstick for oversighting all of them are different. But the broader picture is that this government has a Minister for Public Enterprises through SIGA, State Interest and Governance Authority to oversight the state enterprises sector, that space, so that we change the narrative.
So that's the Minister, Joseph Kujo, there in the interview with my colleague Blessed Suga. We're joined in the studio by Kofi Eji of our research desk. He's been looking at this issue of state-owned enterprises and how well they are doing. Kofi, first of all, in this report, how many institutions were researched on?
Well, there you have it. So 46, SOEs were analyzed. So we have 11 of them being from the financial sector, 10 being from energy, and then you have the rest agric and then infrastructure.
Okay.
Now the next slide, talks about their revenue generation. These 46 XOEs that were, analyzed, what were their revenue? So let's look at the trend from 2016. So we chose 2016 as the base year.
Okay.
So as of 2016, gross, they were making revenue of 28.55 billion Ghana cedis. This increased to 37.91 billion cedis. And then the last time it was analyzed, that's this current year, the current report we have 2020,
which is
where we have revenue being pegged at 45.23 billion Ghana cedis. So you can look at their revenue trend. You can see that it is on the increase. They're actually improving in terms of revenue they make. But
it will be important to look at this as against.
So the subsequent slides will also talk to the net losses and then their liabilities. So the next slide, talks about. So we selected 10 of these SOEs. Okay. So the top 10 in terms of revenue. So we look at ECG leading. Okay. So in 2020, they generated an amount of 13.8 billion, followed by Cocoa Board, 10.
And it's interesting that ECG is leading because just last week, we know that they were on some mass disconnection exercise of major institutions that were indebted to them. And we've talked about the losses that have been we've recorded in ECG over the years. If they are leading in revenue with 13.8 billion as of the last check, it means that they could probably do better.
Yeah, but it's always good to peg your revenue against your total cost or your expenditure.
Of operations, yeah.
Exactly. That's where we know whether you're making profit or a loss. So ECG leading, Cocoa Board, and then the rest follows. Where the Ghana National Gas Company being the least in terms of this top 10, 817 million Ghana cedis as of 2020. Now, this slide talks about the net, loss. So here we are looking at the loss that we are talking about. So we started from 2019 to 2020. So as of 2019, SOEs were the 6 SOEs were making a loss of 5.16 billion Ghana cedis. And, there was a decline in 2020 from the 5.16 billion cedis to 2.61 billion cedis, and that's significant because if as of 2019 you're making a loss of 5.16 and you've been able to reduce this to 2.61 in terms of net loss, that's very significant.
That's more than half.
Exactly. So this one talks about their liabilities. So whilst net loss is going down, but liabilities, that's amount how much they owe and all those things, it's on the rise from 97.61 billion in 2019 to 119.55 billion cedis in 2020. So this is where the situation becomes a bit worrisome because if you should just a year, and if you just look at the difference, it's very significant from 97.61 to 190.
So whilst they may be increasing in revenue, in terms of liabilities as well, there's also some increase that would then affect substantially.
Exactly, and in terms of expenditure and operational costs, direct costs and all those things, so it's on the rise as well. So we looked at the top 10 liabilities. ECG, when we looked at revenue, they were leading. But in terms of
liabilities as well. It makes the point.
Exactly. So ECG is still leading when it comes to liability. Cocoa Board, the same position. And then this time around, GNPC takes the number 3 position with 11.35 billion, in terms of liabilities. And the rest follows.
And then GPHA there at the 10th position.
That's
and Kofi, thank you very much for bringing us these details. Some of the companies have been responding to this, what they call, false news on some online portals. We'll bring you the statement of BOST. But let's go on to Zoom now and speak to Dr. Corbin Donkor, who is on the Public Enterprises Committee of Parliament. He joins us. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on Joy News Prime. I'm pretty certain that the phenomenon of SOEs making losses is not new to the committee in Parliament. But what do you make of this move? First of all, this report released by the Finance Ministry, and then the announcement by the Minister about selling some off and privatizing others. Well, we seem to have a frozen feed there of Dr. Corbin Donkor. We'll reconnect to him once we have that feed back on. But we can bring you the statement of BOST. They have been responding to what they say is false news on some online portals that quotes their boss as saying they have made some losses, but BOST is saying that it's on its way to becoming an international or a world-class state-owned enterprise. So it says that April 10, 2022, Accra, the management of the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company Limited has taken notice of a series of publications making the rounds on several online portals, suggesting that contrary to an announcement by the MD Edwin Provencal that BOST has made an operating profit before tax of 30 million Ghana cedis, a report from SIGA indicates BOST has incurred losses to the tune of 400 million Ghana cedis. We, by this publication, seek to correct the erroneous impression created by the publication and wish to set the record straight as follows. So we picked the very last, the very first and last paragraph, which actually addresses the issue. It says, your company, BOST, has been turned around. Any comprehensive and objective analysis of the auditor statement for the past 5 years will show a company on track to higher performance through enhanced efficiency, and will look forward to capitalizing on these modest improvements to make BOST an example of a world-class state-owned enterprise. It remains uncontested that the debt to suppliers and related parties of $623 million has been paid down to $39 million. The debt owed the local banks of about $273 million has been fully cleared, and our pipelines, which were procured in 2011 and left to the mercy of the weather in the United States under the AT&V contract, have arrived safely on our shores, and we expect to complete the installation of the additional 12-inch pipeline between Accra Plains and Akosomo Depot. The cash flow position of the company is enhanced, and the repair of the company's infrastructure continues despite the reduction in our BOST margin. In conclusion, we iterate the fact that your company, BOST, is on its way to becoming a profitable state-owned enterprise, and nothing will derail the resolve of management and staff to achieve this. God bless our homeland, Ghana, and make our nation great and strong. Let's go on to the phone now. Dr. Kubner Junko joins us this time on phone. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on Joy News Prime. And so give us first of all your reaction to the 2020 report released by the Finance Ministry on state-owned enterprises.
Well, 2020 was a difficult year for most entities, and therefore I wasn't surprised that other than the mining sector and a few others, the performance was generally poor. However, having said that, we are not just of the traditional state-owned enterprise. Today, under SIGA, they've also brought in the regulatory board. They are the other state entities. And those are not meant to be profitable. They are not meant to make profit, even though they can be losses. So let's just be sure we are talking about real commercial entities. The real commercial entities are 47, then the JVCs, the joint venture companies are 17. Then there are 14 entities where the state has minority interest. For example, every mining company, the state has a 10% interest. So those are the minority interests. Then there are 54 other state entities: Petroleum Commission, Energy Commission, and the other regulatory bodies, Ghana Standards Authority. So we cannot measure them by profitability, but we can measure them more by efficiency. Of course, they make surplus. NPA, Petroleum Authority, has a surplus. Yes.
But the efficiency has also been called into question, and that is part of the reasons the minister says some of them would have to be sold off completely, others privatized, and there'll be a full list of what to do with some of these companies. I'm sure Parliament should take an interest in this.
Absolutely. Why must we sell off? First of all, there are issues beyond the entities. The major challenge of a number of state-owned enterprises are governance. Who appoints the board? Who appoints chief executive? You have entities that have survived and done well under one chief executive. They are suddenly given 3 deputy chief executives. We have a governance issue. And that report does not address the governance issue. A number of them have been without boards or were without boards for a period. Therefore, we must also get our political act together.
Okay.
Are these entities going to be allowed to be commercial entities? Are we going to develop a new criteria for employing the leadership of these entities? Or the leadership of these entities will invariably be just for the boys? Some entities within the last 4 years had their numbers more than double. Of course, if you have employees more than double, with a corresponding increase in market share, and where the regulatory bodies, for example, if you take the numbers of Petroleum Commission over the last 4 or 5 years and compare them to what they were even in 2017, 2018, a number of recruitment has gone on. Yet we still have 3 producing fields. We have not added producing fields. And therefore, some of the issues are not just commercial. Just selling them off for me, can be a lazy way out. Let's examine each one of them. What are the real challenges?
So your position is that for some of these agencies, once we're able to deal with the governance issues, and of course the sheer politics of it, we may not have to sell them off.
Precisely. Once we deal with the governance issues and make sure we put them on a commercial footing, those that are commercial, then we don't have to sell them off. We can, some of them, for example, we can bring in private participation if some of them are undercapitalized and the state is not in a position to inject capital. Let's take the good case of East Electricity Company of Ghana.
Yeah.
When PDS was managing the network, PDS had an agreement with the government of Ghana that anytime there was a need for the quarterly tariff adjustment, and government of Ghana, for any reason, did not see through the adjustment, the government of Ghana was to pay PDS. We don't have the same with ECG now that it's being managed by its own board.
Yeah.
And therefore, if we are unable or unwilling to adjust tariffs, and it affects their operation, I'm not saying ECG is the epitome of efficiency. No, there's still a lot of work to be done in efficiency. But the Ghanaian state has also contributed.
Very well. Doc, we'd have to leave it here because of time, but I'm grateful that you could join us. And of course, this has just come up. I'm sure eventually when government decides on what to do with some of these companies, it may come before Parliament, and then we can have a broader conversation on that. Let's